Hello and welcome to episode 11 of DataCube's free online Power BI training. Today builds off last week's session, which was all about bookmark basics, and our title for today is Advanced Bookmarks. We're going to be speaking about 4 key ideas. One is we learnt about selections last week, so we're going to be learning how to group those together. We're going to be creating bookmarks which influence multiple changes. We're going to take them and use them on the principle of swapping your chart types. So we're going to swap from a line chart to a bar chart or vice versa. And we're going to be speaking about some of the more advanced parts of bookmarks. So selecting which bookmarks control the data and which ones don't. And from that we will be able to create reset buttons on your filters and slicers. So stay tuned for advanced bookmarks. We're going to be resuming in Power BI where we finished off last week. So if you remember, this is what we left up with, where we could control our charts appearing and disappearing, navigating back to our dashboard and back to page 2 again. First off, I'm going to create a matrix. So I'm going to click on matrix. I'm going to add in on sales into values. I'm also going to add in value into values, and I'm going to add in product in the rows, and maybe I'll add date in columns. Is that too complicated? I'll keep that out for now. So we've made a nice table. And let's make it really big. Great. And you can see that our line chart and bar chart are now sitting underneath, if you remember the hierarchy we spoke about last week. So they're still there, but they're just sitting underneath, as you can see in our selection panel matrix at the top. So let's rename this, and we're going to call it the product matrix. Now you can see we've got some other ones that we made last week. So if I click on this shape, let's call that circle shape perhaps. And our button, let's rename this as nav to dashboard, and we've got an image, so let's call that chart selector. And the first thing I want to speak about is grouping your selections. So we have a few here that are charts and a few things that we're using as buttons, whether that be a button, a shape or an image. So first I'm going to just change the hierarchy. I'm going to move all our sort of shape files, which are buttons, shapes and image, together. Now I'm going to click on the first one, hold shift and click on the third one. Okay, so now they're all selected. You can see they're selected in the workbook on the sheet as well. I'm going to right click on those and I get this option to group. I'm going to group, and now I can see that they're all grouped together. And now Power BI has put a box around all of these. I can click off there, and now I can look under group 1. I can rename group 1 by double clicking on it. I'm going to call it the I don't know, the button group, because we're using these basically as buttons. Now I want to do the same for the line chart and bar chart that are sitting underneath. So I'm going to group those together. We've got a new group 1, which we can call chart group, and then we have the product matrix, so sitting all on its own. Now we don't need to group something that's all on its own, so I'm going to leave that like it is. Now what I'm going to do is utilize these 2 buttons, our chart, if I open these up now. So I'm going to utilize the circle, which is the circle, and the chart, which is the chart selector. I'm actually going to rename the circle as matrix selector. Now you can see probably where I'm going with this. So I'm going to create a new bookmark here. I'm going to rename this as page 2 charts, and I'm going to another one and rename this to page 2 matrix. Excellent, so what we need to do is update our bookmarks with the right selections and then assign some actions to our buttons, shapes or images. So first up, let's click on page 2 matrix. Now I want this to just show the product matrix without these charts. It's going to hide the chart group and you can see that it hides everything underneath it. I'm going to click on the 3 dots, press update on there. Then I'll click on page 2 charts and hide the matrix because it's underneath, and if the hierarchy ever changes we'll want that to be hidden, and update that. Now we can play around with our bookmarks by clicking on these. So when I click on page 2 matrix we can see the matrix, when I click on page 2 charts we can see the charts. Now I want to assign these bookmarks to these shapes and images. So I'll click on my circle, which is the matrix selector, and I'm going to update this bookmark that we created last week and apply page 2 matrix to that. And with the chart selector image that I'm using, I'm going to update the bookmark here and set it to page 2 charts. Now remember from last week, hold down Control. So I'm going to hold down Control, click on my my matrix selector, and you can see it's utilized the bookmarks matrix, which has gone grey. And if I do the same, hold down Control and click on the chart image, I can see my charts, so I can flick between these and get the different bookmark. You can see how powerful that is, and it's very ergonomic, it's very good for the end user experience. Instead of having another sheet which just has a table on it, I can just utilize and use one page sheet here and change what visuals I'm seeing. Next up, I'm going to speak about what the data section under the bookmarks do. So first up, I'm going to move my button groups up a bit, and I want to just choose the lower two here. I'm going to move this chart one down, and you'll see how that selection gets bigger as I've moved it. And I'm going to go to page 1 and just steal this date slicer that I've had, and I'm going to paste that into the gap here. Now you can see I don't have my yes, I'd like to sync. That's good that that pops up. The formatting has stayed from the sheet, so I just quickly need to format this so we can actually read it. So let's change the font color in here to a grey. Now what I want to be doing is speaking about this data section that's ticked. So if I were to do a selection, the 5th to the 7th, you can see 2 days worth of data, and click on charts and it's reset it. Or let's do the similar thing, click on matrix, let's reset our data. So what this enables us to do, if I click on our bookmark, click on the 3 dots, deselect data, click back on it, press update. I'm going to do that the same for charts, so I'm going to click on the 3 dots, click on the data, click update. Now I'm going to select a filter, let's just choose a few days there, click on the matrix. Our filter has remained and the chart is just showing what is filtered there. So this is great for understanding what this data does, as if we had lots and lots of different filters all synced across all our different sheets, and we're using navigation to get from sheet to sheet or to changing charts or however you've set your selection bookmarks and actions up, and we want to rotate our data selections. That is exactly what we can do here with this data. Now if we had lots and lots of different filters or slicers, it would take a decent time to go through them all and set them back to default. So what we can do is utilize this data to create a sort of reset button. So we're going to add here a reset button, and I'm going to pop it in between here, button text on, I'm going to call this reset, let's call it, let's say reset filters, and let's pop this up a bit. Okay, great. So we now have a button called reset filters, and what I'm going to do is for each of these I'm going to make a new one. So let's add a new page 2 matrix here. As our sort of default page 2, and let's call it reset. And I'm going to make sure that data is turned on and press update on here. Now if I click on that as a test and put this back to 0 or to the default position and update that with the data selected, and if I go to page 2 matrix here and let's create a filter selection, I can go to the charts, stays the same, go to the matrix, stays the same, go to charts, stays the same. If I click on reset, hopefully, yeah, we have now gone back to our default position, which we've choose as this matrix, and we've overridden the filters with that data ticked and enabled. Now what we can do is assign that bookmark as an action to here. So I've created this reset button, I turn an action on, I'm going to choose it as a bookmark, and I'm going to do page 2 reset. Now if we go to our charts, we're looking at the data and we think, okay, this is interesting, let's just look at the 5th to the 7th. Okay, great, let's see how that looks on the table. Okay, maybe I just want to look at 2 days, that's updated, let's go to the chart, see what that looks like. Okay, I want to reset that, click on the reset button, we're back to square one. So that wraps up episode 11, Advanced Bookmarks. We've learnt how to group our selections into groups, and we have created bookmarks which do multiple changes. So for example, allow us to use one sheet and switch between charts and matrix here. We've used the data here to enable us to keep our filters and selections between our bookmarks, for example here between the chart and the matrix. And we've also utilized that with it turned on to be able to reset the data, reset the filters, and create a reset button. Hope you found that super useful. Next week we're going to be talking about tooltips and some advanced tooltip features in Power BI, so make sure you tune in for that. Thank you very much, see you next week.